Welcome to the first ever Pacific Indians Chatter talk show, where we talk everything Pacific Indians. I'm your host, Cody Kelly, joined with my co-host, Scott Brown. Some of you may know from all of his years as a baseball and basketball coach. He will be joining us weekly as we recap the week that was in Pacific sports. Before we kick it off, I'll kick it over to Coach Brown for his intro to the show.
Glad to be here, Cody. Little different capacity than spending time on the hardwood the whole winter, but I think it's a great forum to recognize some of these athletes that we don't hear too much about throughout the season. Even giving a little shout out to our Riverbed kids in 7th and 8th grade, and we should have some fun with this and get some great interviews and maybe some good insight from the both of us over the next couple months.
And speaking of Riverbed, let's start out there with our Riverbed Roundup from this week.
The middle school wrestling team finished up their 2021 season in December, led by Ken Grody. He's also one of the assistant football coaches, but Ken takes on the wrestling program as the head coach. And he said this season they had quite a bit of participation. They ended up with 142 total wins. And I guess you look at it like that a little more with the middle school because they take a lot of kids to these meets and let them wrestle. His top 5 wrestlers for the season to qualify for winning percentage needed 10 matches, but top dog Lucas Tennyson, 8th grader, finished with a 14-2 record. Braden Milberg was right behind him at 12-2. Leland Alton, another 8th grader, and another 8th grader, Israel Gensler. Leland was 11-3. Israel was 10-3, and Charlie Hill came over from St. Bridget's and took advantage of the wrestling program, finished at 10-5. 7th grader Robert Etherton missed the start of the season, but finished undefeated 4-0 towards the latter part of the year. Coach Grody was really happy with the wrestling squad as a whole, as a lot of them improved. His 4 most improved athletes as the season got into December, Danny Gullett, an 8th grade girl. She had 8 wins on the year. She wrestled both boys and girls at some of these meets and did an excellent job. 8th grader Blake Cottingham, 7 wins on the year, much improved. Another 8th grader, Mason Link, got to 8 wins. And 8th grader Brock Webb, 8-4 on the season. So Coach Grody doing a great job promoting Riverbed wrestling and trying to keep that program as a top-notch program at the high school with a feeder system.
And we talk about how important the feeder system is to the other programs at the high school. We can go over to our other feeder system that's been big for the basketball program is the 8th grade boys, coached by Danny Missey. They continue to roll. They picked up 2 wins this week and pushed their record to 11-0. The 8th grade is a pretty big athletic team that plays hard every night, led by 6'4" wing Gage Clark. And then on the 7th grade side of things, the boys played last night against New Haven and picked up their 2nd win of the season, 26-6. 7th grade's coached by Corey Kauser. And they had Rowan Herman averages 11 points per game and Logan Hoffman averages 9 points per game at last check on the stats.
Looks like the middle schoolers have having some success on the hardwood and on the wrestling mat this year. And like you said before, they're huge importance for the high school programs to try to keep the numbers up as some programs once in a while tend to get lower numbers in the last few years, and these guys are doing a great job of keeping the interest high.
And that's an important thing. Whenever I talked to our athletic director, Blair Thompson, when we had this idea to come up with this, is we really thought it would be important to bring in the Riverbend kids because they just don't seem to get the notoriety as much as the high school kids do. So now though, it's time to go to 425 Indian Warpath Drive and talk about a little high school athletics. We'll start with the girls' side of things. We'll go to another coach, Missey. Melanie Missey leads the Varsity Indians, who you will hear from later today on this show. She will be our special guest. The girls played this week against Melville and took a 42-27 loss. They were in the game the whole time. It was tied going into the 4th. Abby Hall led the Indians with 8 points. The game really kind of changed when Molly Pritchard got into foul trouble, and it sort of swung the momentum towards Melville. And in that JV contest that night, the JV team won 18-16, which was JV coach Ryan Carter's first career win. So congratulations to him. He said he was really impressed with how hard the girls played all 4 quarters. And then on the varsity side of things, coming up, they have a contest Saturday with Lake.
I think it's Lakeway, but I've heard it pronounced 2 different ways.
So they're playing for 3rd place in the Bourbon tournament, which was rescheduled due to weather last week. So we can recap you real quick on how they got to that point. The Lady Indians went down to Bourbon and beat Viburnum in their first round matchup 46-45. And then a tough matchup against the top seed Liberty, where they dropped 47-32. And the Lady Indians have a busy week next week, but we'll get into that a little more with Coach Missey here in a minute.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from Coach Missey. She's a super competitor. I work with her at school all day, and her heart is for sure in the right place. She works hard. They're very young. I think success is going to happen, but it's going to take a little while building a program. And when you're young, you're playing against a lot of teams that have experience. And I think once they just start putting the time in, we'll start to see some results, because I know she's willing and able to be the leader that this program needs. All right, let's jump into a couple other of items here at the high school. The girls' dance team. Coach Tanya Barnes said the dance team is continuing to prep for state competition in late February. Usually the dance team performs at halftime of the boys' basketball games. And for the state competition, they have to perform a video routine in early February, just in case that old COVID bug bites them and they can't go to the state competition in the latter part of February. But these girls work tremendously hard. They're very talented. If you haven't been out to a basketball game and caught them performing, it's a treat. They've spent a lot of time dancing in their youth, and they've perfected their craft, and they do a great job. And with that, on the ladies' side, the cheer team, led by Coach Casey Cowsert, is another underappreciated group at the high school, I think, and they've been prepping the varsity cheer squad for their upcoming nationals in Dallas. And last month, the squad finished 4th in state. They overcame a major injury the day before they left. And when you have routines set up in either dance or cheer team, I can imagine that was really stressful trying to fix a routine to perform at a high level. And she's really proud of them and the way they fought through that. And another group that practices quite often, very talented, athletic, they're held to a certain standard, and they're also fun to watch if you can make a basketball game and catch the cheer team.
And then on to the boys' side of things. The boys' basketball team this week went to Fox, and they actually came out with a big win, 39-35 at Fox. Jack Meyer and Quinn Blackburn both had 14 points for the Indians. Quinn also had 13 rebounds for another double-double, which he has to be getting close to some kind of school record on double-doubles, I would think. He also had 2 monster dunks. And the JV side of things, so the Borgia JV tournament's going on this week, as well as that Fox game. In the Borgia JV tournament, they lost their opening game to Washington 43-21. And then their second round game, they lost a tough one to Union in a very competitive ball game, 63-53, where Ryan Bruns went for 31 points, who you might hear his name a little later when we get to our moment of the week, player of the week, whatever we're going to end up calling it.
Yeah, the boys, once again, are very young. A lot of enthusiasm, not a whole lot of senior participation this year. And Jack and Quinn, you talked about having them coach them when I was in the boys basketball program. They're unbelievable kids. They're getting better. They're getting stronger. And it's amazing to watch Quinn, how far he's come from a freshman to just a junior. Being 6'8", his footwork is tremendous. And everybody likes to see a hammer dunk once in a while. And my kids were at the Owensville tournament first round game, and he put one down, and it just brought everybody in the gym to their feet. So get out and catch the Indians.
And then on the freshman side, I was able to talk to head coach Justin King. They played Fox this week. They dropped that game 46-34. Parker Linder led the Indians in scoring. And that game put their record for the season to 2-5. Justin's also mentioned, though, that, and I know this is true too, that they've lost some guys, the JV call-up, varsity call-ups. They've had illness throughout the program. But Justin said the guys have been looking really good in practice. They just need to translate it to the court. And I think we'll start to see that with Justin, as he's a really good coach. And I think he'll get that out of those guys and bring it to the court. The boys have a busy week next week with Washington at home on Tuesday, and they make a trip to Afton Wednesday.
Yeah, I know that feeling, losing a couple guys to the team above you. As I had several years, but you just have to commit to what's best for the program, and the varsity team is obviously what's best for the program, plus they're the boss, so you have to kind of.
So now we can turn it over to this week. The team that had the big week this week was the wrestling side of things, coached by Jesse Knott.
Yeah, the wrestlers, congratulations. FRC, Four Rivers Conference champs, that is, for 2021-22. They secured their 15th conference title in school history at Owensville, and they won with a score of 174.5. Second place, St. James, 167. Third place was Sullivan at 149.5. I think the Wrestling Indians have a really good tournament and dual team this year. And some of the guys that excelled at Owensville in the conference championship matches, Fabian Perez took third. We had second places by Nathan Naff at 285, Ethan Flaherty at 120, Caden Browning at 126, and Tim Link at 106. Warren Fiedler, Dominic Calvin, and Blake McKay were individual champions at the Owensville event for the Four Rivers Conference Championship. Fiedler at 132, Dominic Calvin at 182, and Blake McKay at 220. And just a little bit of prep for this program. They're consistent year in and year out. They usually are one of the best programs in the area as a team. They have multiple state champions. I believe their coach is a former state champion, and they're very aware of their history. They like to put the things that they excel at and the goals that they meet on the wall in the gym, and they're a proud group. And if you spend time in that wrestling room and you achieve something, you've done something. So shout out to those guys. Last night at the dual meet, they dropped one to Rolla, and they did get a dual win over Westminster. And coming up for them in districts is Farmington, February 11th and 12th. They've got a couple weeks to prepare for districts to see how many guys they can get to state. The girls program has 3 girls in the wrestling program at the high school, and at the conference meet, Lana Total finished 3rd, Scarlett Boyer finished 3rd, and Zoe Fisher got 2nd at the conference meet. And I know Coach Knott is looking to grow that program as well, and the Riverbend program at the middle school had some girls wrestling as well this year. So nothing but great things to say about Pacific Wrestling.
Speaking of Coach Jesse Knott, he will be our guest next week on the podcast for a little sit-down interview with him. But as of for this week, that takes us through the kind of the weekly recap of everything. And now we go to our performance of the week, which I'm going to go first, and I'll take this one just so Coach Brown has to come up with somebody different. I'm going to go with the wrestling team, because the wrestling team did conference championship on the boys' side. So to me, they're my performance of the week. Who do you have?
I got to take Ryan Bruns at the St. Francis Borgia JV tournament. The junior poured in 31 points. He was 5 for 7 from the three-point line. He was 8 for 8 from the free throw line. And according to his coach, he was an efficient scoring machine that night. 31 points, Ryan Bruns. Great job, Ryan. I'm sure that's a career high for him. Pumping in 31 in a JV game is pretty unique. So he's my performance of the week.
And that'll do it for the roundup section of our show here, the little Indians chatter, as we break down everything that happened in the week that was. Before anybody goes anywhere, though, Coach Missey will be back with us here shortly. Throw it to Coach Brown. That was a good first show for us.
Glad to be here, Cody, and I think this is a great thing, and looking forward to next week.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. Coach Missey will join us right after this. And we're back, joined in studio with head girls varsity basketball coach Melanie Missey. Welcome to the show, Coach. How's it feel to be the first ever guest on the Pacific Indians Chatter?
A little nervous, however, it seems like I did one of these not too long ago, but I'm excited to share our progress that our girls put in and day out with our community and our listeners on the podcast.
Yeah, I won't tell people at home that we're on take 4, but that's what we're on. So, before we jump into anything about the current team, I would rather jump into a little bit about you, because you're not originally from here. I believe you're from somewhere in Iowa. If you just want to tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Pacific.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Iowa where I spent most of my time in the gym working on basketball. I mean, that was pretty much the only thing you could do in a small town. I played all 4 years of basketball in high school. From there, I attended Jefferson College here in Missouri my freshman year playing basketball. And after that, I decided to go back towards home, be more around my family. I attended Iowa Wesleyan College playing basketball, and I also ran track. At Iowa Wesleyan, we made it to the national tournament my junior and senior year, 1 year making the Elite Eight and the following year the Sweet 16. I met my now husband, Daniel Missey, who is Pacific's 8th grade boys basketball coach and the boys JV soccer coach. Met him at college, and after he graduated, we decided it would be best to move back to Pacific. When we came back to Pacific, I started my teaching career as well as my coaching career at St. Clair. After 1 year, I was excited to get a position in the Merrimack Valley School District. This year is my 4th year in the district and 4th year of coaching, and obviously everyone knows now this is my first year as head coach.
Yeah, and it is nice to have you here at Pacific. I've known you for probably ever since you moved back with Danny, since I've known Danny since we were in school together, graduated together. So how exciting is it for you to have your own program now? And who has helped you kind of get here? Former coaches, anybody that sort of helped you along your way?
When I first found out I was named the girls' head basketball coach, I was so excited and knew I would have a lot to work towards. My husband and I just welcomed our first baby boy in July. His name is Tatum Ryan, and for me, it has been a lot to balance, but I love the chaos. I worked hard to get here, spent several years working under coaches that helped prepare myself for this role in the program. I was excited to have this opportunity, especially with the group of girls I have this year. I have a lot of coaches to thank along the way who have shaped me into the coach I am today. For starters, my head coach for high school, Mitch Walk, showed me that I needed to work hard not only on the court but also in the classroom. A perfect balance between a player and student, and I strive that to my players now. That it's important to take control of their work in the classroom before they can do anything on the court. My head coach for college, Steve Williamson, who pushed me every day to see the potential I had and knew exactly how to get through to me. He was very hard on me and constantly would be on my case. He was a coach that built relationships with his players and knew exactly how to address each individual without bringing them down, but to motivate them to be the best version of themselves on and off the court. My assistant coaches now, Coach Miller and Coach Carter, who are my assistant coaches, they definitely made it a smooth transition for me this year. They both make a positive impact on the players and a huge impact on me with their helpful knowledge of the game and how we can implement game plans in practice and during our games. And they're just two of the great guys to be around. You know, sometimes they're serious, sometimes we can have jokes. It's a good atmosphere to be around. The other coaches I'd like to thank along the way and who helped me, especially in the last several years, are Coach Brown, Coach Hillhouse, and Coach Van Leer. They are veteran coaches who have a lot of experience and knowledge, and when I get home from a game, when I'm dwelling on what are some things that we can work on, I know they're only a call or text away who can help me at any advice that I need.
All right, Coach, so that was great to hear a little bit about your background and what motivated you to become a head coach. Now let's jump into your guys' game this week with Melville. I believe it was a 42-27 final. You guys were tied going into the fourth quarter, 22 all. Can you tell me a little bit about the game?
Yeah. One thing I praise about my girls, to go the full game, never give up, no matter what the score is. I know we were going into the fourth quarter tied. It seems like our girls were a little too tired to finish off the game. We had a few girls who were out sick that game, so a lot of our starters playing the entire game without a break. And then we had our post, Molly Pritchard, with 3 fouls right in the second quarter, so it was tough going against Melville with a 6'3" post who played most of the game, and it was just hard to guard her and keep her off the boards. But yeah, it was a tough night. We definitely should have got that W. But now all we can do now is take our mistakes and fix them in practice.
And then in that night also the JV picked up a win, which was Coach Carter's first career win as a JV coach. And since he's one of our baseball coaches, I would just like to congratulate him on his first career JV win there with the girls.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate him as well on his first win as a JV coach. So congrats, Coach Carter, and the girls. The girls played awesome. You know, there's some girls who stepped up. One thing that I saw a few times is, you know, Sarah Beth Ring attacking the basket and going hard and finishing, and then the girls on the bench were cheering for their teammates no matter if they were in the game playing or on the bench. So it was a great teamwork to get a W that night.
So looking forward to next week. Well, don't want to jump too far. You guys do have LaQuay Saturday, which is the third place game of the Bourbon Tournament. Hopefully we'll be able to play that if the snow stays away. I guess we'll find out here shortly. But next week, though, you guys have 3 in a row, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And as a former athlete, I would say I would like that. Really, it's less practice, but some people do ask, how do you get ready for 3 straight?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you because you were a big help last week, you know, going period by period, trying to figure out, calling these coaches in the surrounding area to try to get some teams that will play us next week because we were dropped by a team. And so we were going to go 10 days without a game, and now we have 3 straight. So thank you again for helping us get those games. Yeah, I mean, we get game film on these teams. We scout them. We try to implement the best game plan in practice and just go from there. I mean, my girls have to be ready, and it's a good way to show them how to be mentally tough and going 3 days playing. You know, they're going to be tired. They're going to probably be worn out, but it also puts both teams in a good way for the following week. I mean, JV will have their Windsor tournament that following week that we have the Washington tournament. So both teams are going 3 games the following week. So it'll get us definitely prepared for that.
And in the Washington tournament, it looks like we know that you will play Parkway West first now. That's something that just came across the wire today, I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
So that'll be the first round of the Washington tournament, which is 2 weeks from now. Also, on the scheduling note, I'd like to also thank our athletic director, Blair Thompson, for helping us with that and allowing us the freedom to start calling all these hundreds of cool schools we called that day, and to thank him for this because he's the one that made this possible right here. Now, if we jump around, I will say, though, as watching your team this year from last year, one thing that I've noticed early on is your team plays very hard from the opening whistle to the last whistle, and it seems like if somebody doesn't do that, they're not in the game for much longer. And that's something that's a huge difference from what we've had the last couple of years. Can you kind of expand on that? Is that part of your program that you want to do that?
Yeah, the girls know that's the style of play that I want to play. We're not, I'll be honest, we're not the best shooting team from outside the arc. So, you know, we have to have a different threat on the court. And as soon as the girls found out that I was, you know, the coach coming in this year, they knew exactly what was going to happen in preseason, in practice, during the games. It's going to be nonstop running. We have a lot of athletes on this team this year who are, you know, very, very quick, very active with their hands. And I strive that from the first time, you know, when they step into the gym, they know if we go through any drill at all, slow pace, moping around, they know to put that ball in that rack and get on the baseline, and we're running for it. So we always have to go hard in practice, in the game. You play like you practice. So that's something I always implement with the girls, and how, you know, take what you're given and go out there, make yourself better every single day, both you and your teammates.
And then just from my own personal experience on the baseball side, having a young team is usually a really nice thing. And it looks like you don't have any seniors this year or a freshman. So your kind of nucleus is all juniors and sophomores. So you got to like to have that coming back next year.
Yeah, I mean, I get the same team next year. So it's definitely awesome to have, because you know each individual player, and you could take that and even off the off season, during the summer, you know, keep working on the skills that they need to get better at, and just be a better team next year. And hopefully we get a large group of girls coming up from the 8th grade to our freshman team. So I eventually want to have large numbers to where we can have, a varsity team, JV team, and a C team as well. Build this program up.
Yeah, that'd be great because it's always important to have that freshman team. So now that we are coming to a close of the interview, how do you think you do? I know you were nervous. This is also our 4th take. So
I think I did all right, but I honestly want to thank you and Coach Brown for putting this together and the ideas that you guys brought to Mr. Thomas about this podcast. I really like the idea about it.
those of you who just heard the background, school just got out.
Well, hopefully within time, after our listeners listen to how much our athletes put in and put out, I really want not just my program, but the rest of the sports programs in our in our school, to get the attendance and the crowds, build that atmosphere back up that it used to be 5-10 years ago. I go through some of my husband's pictures from when he played basketball and just seeing the student section. I mean, seeing those pictures, that's crazy how many people would attend those games and get the, not only get the crowd going, but you get the girls to play harder, you get the athletes to play harder. And I feel like that's the type of atmosphere we need to put back into our gyms on the field.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. I was there for it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it just builds everyone up. So I definitely think we need to bring that back. Students come, staff come and support your students that are in your classroom. So hopefully with this podcast, this helps out and have a rest of a good season.
So now you seem like a pro now on this podcast, mainly because we've done it a few times. Would you be willing to come back and join us as a guest host? I know Coach Hillhouse has already expressed interest in possibly doing something like that.
I mean, if Coach Hillhouse does it, I'll be his partner in crime.
There's some nights, some weeks that we got baseball, too many games that me and Coach Brown won't be available to record, so we're going to need some help.
I'll definitely be willing to help. I mean, you've put this together, so I would definitely be willing to come back and help.
So that is our interview with Coach Missey. Thank you for joining us, Coach.
Thank you.
I know you got practice to get to. And join us again next week as we'll have Jesse Knott on to talk about the conference championship wrestling team. Thank you. See you next week.